Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rekakadash, Dolan, the apostles of Great Millstone, where Jesus' truth is sincerity, and shout out to Yakims out there in the four corners of the earth proclaiming His truth. Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Rekakadash, Bracha. So within stretch Christianity, plantation Christianity, they believe that there's going to be an Antichrist, just like, Damien Thorne, Omen 3, Omen 1, 2. That there's just going to be one man that's going to rule the world, and he's going to be the Antichrist, right? Okay, they believe that, but yet, at the same time, the Israelis, who claim to be something different than the rest of the Edomites, well, they claim that they're looking for their Messiah. They want to usher in the Messiah, and they believe King Bibi is the guy to do that, right? And so Mel Gibson, is blowing the whistle on that, right? Israeli psychopaths destroying America so Antichrist can usher in the New World Order. Is the title of this, and I thought that was interesting because, again, we know that there are many Antichrists, but in particularly, anti-Messiah. Well, the main anti-Messiah is Esau Edom in itself, but you see Esau Edom is divided, and so these Gutterets, these Amalekites, well, they're getting the whistle blown on them, and that King Bibi is deliberately destroying America so he can usher in the Messiah to come. Thus, the real Messiah, which to their demise is the actual one. So by doing that, they're actually ushering in the real one, right? Because nobody thinks that it's that Yahweh or Yahweh Shai is a Negro, right? Having hair white like wool and feet like undefined brass as if burned in the furnace. But they'll be ushering in the real one. So like everything else though, he's blowing the whistle on this, and why King Bibi is doing what he's doing to destroy America, it undermine anything that America does, and deliberately taking more land. Because they believe that they can bring in their Messiah. This is what they've been taught from day one from the Talmud, which has nothing to do with the biblical scriptures, but is in fact Antichrist, right? Anti-Messiah. Because that's not what the Bible teaches at all. The Talmud has nothing to do with the Bible, and these aren't the people of the Most High. So anyways, he's going to get into it a little bit, as this channel, blows a whistle on a lot of things, But this is the people's voice, and he's just, taking what's already out there.
Israel psychopaths are destroying America from within, according to Mel Gibson, who's gone on the record denouncing the political leadership of Israel for hijacking the United States and steering it towards ruin. According to Gibson, sleeper agents are deeply embedded within American institutions.
Yep.
They have people in the White House, the Pentagon, the intelligence agencies, and every member of Congress has their own APAC. This is why it feels like nobody is doing anything about the coup d'etat that we can all see playing out before our eyes. But it's the ultimate goal of the coup that should leave us terrified for the future, according to Gibson. He says Israel is hell-bent on destroying the US in preparation for the arrival of the Antichrists, who will be the ruler of a one-world government ushered in by the New World Order. Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
That New World Order is Esau Edom,
join
right?
our incredible community, support the first bleed the country dry. According to Gibson, the answers can be found in the Talmud. He argues that the text reveals a deep agenda hidden beneath today's geopolitical turmoil. And he's not alone. Former Israeli intelligence operative Mossad Hassan Youssef just issued a threat against Americans turning against Israel. In one interview, he suggested that Israel has weapons they've not used yet. Then came an even more ominous message. If they keep pushing Israel into a corner, he warned, they will suffer most.
Israel's existence is not negotiable, and it does not depend on superpowers or the public opinion. And if they keep pushing Israel to the corner, they are the ones who are going to suffer the most. Israel hasn't used everything that it has. And Israel, on a purpose,
wow, he looks like the leader of Syria, doesn't he?
The advanced weapons that it has, for a very important reason. We don't want
that. Looks a lot like Al-Jalani.
At this point, we're just playing around.
The mask is slipping. Mossad just openly identified American citizens as enemies of Israel and threatened them with advanced weaponry of which Israel has kept secret. This came after Netanyahu identified American patriots as enemies on the digital battlefield. The eighth front in Netanyahu's ever-expanding forever war. He says Israel just changed its security policy.
We changed Israel's security doctrine. We initiate, we attack, we surprise, and we attack those enemies that seek to kill us. We attack them before they have a chance to do so. If you know Hebrew, Hakam lo gecha, Ashkem lo go.
Listen, just quickly, if you haven't yet signed up for VP.net, you should urgently consider it. Israel has infiltrated and compromised all of the world's leading VPNs. But don't take my word for it.
Yeah, VPNs,
and make sure to investigate the shock. Now, Actor Mel Gibson's dire warning that Israel has the world in a headlock and is driving 100 miles per hour towards a one-world government led by the biblical Antichrist. Earlier this year, Gibson began presenting the case for the prosecution. Israel, he said, would seize land in Argentina, as well as around the Middle East.
But he gives you the illusion that Trump's going to save the day.
Zionists were caught red-handed, burning Argentina to the ground using IDF hand grenades as part of a plot to seize Patagonia and turn it into Greater Israel in the southern hemisphere. Since then, Israel has seized land in Lebanon and Syria, a country which does not have Hamas or Hezbollah and has never attacked Israel. As Bill Cooper explains, the globalist elite are openly planning to welcome the biblical Antichrist to lead a one-world government, just as the Bible warned.
What role in the Middle East again does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that would be so terrible.
Albert Plank said it.
So that the American citizens and the other people in the world will get down on their knees and beg for no more war. What's the answer to that? They're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity in a one world government.
Right.
There it is.
And the Jewish people were then being manipulated into believing it was for some other reason.
That's correct. They've always been manipulated. And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong, it's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews, it's not the Catholics, it's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools who meet in secret beside the fate of the world.
Amalek.
And they belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions.
The secret societies.
It's a different story.
A.K.A. Lucifer.
All countries. They all belong.
They call themselves the light bearers.
People sit back and we watch this grand drama which is being played out for our benefit. Not theirs. It wasn't for us. We didn't have to do any of this. And you see, they just can't come out and destroy all of us because they need slaves. They need people to make their shoes, and make their cars, and mine the ore. They need worker bees, and that's what we are. In the New World Order, we will be the worker bees, the slaves.
According to Gibson, whose child trafficking investigation has led him into the heart of darkness, Israel has been at the heart of the plan to usher in the New World Order for centuries. And the Zionists are now pulling the trigger by igniting World War III and unleashing a potential American nuclear holocaust. We've got the news from Gibson right after this important word from our sponsor. It turns out that the key to losing weight, the link below this video to learn his secret.
Once you do,
or the hostage under their knee at thehealthyfat.com/TPV.
Right, here it is.
According to Gibson, Netanyahu just wants to see the world burn. Whether that fire comes from nuclear fallout, through Israel's Samson option, that holds the US and Europe hostage under their nuclear guns, or whether it comes from literal flames, like the Hellfire missiles unleashed on their neighbours, or the wildfires sparked in Argentina and Chile, the goal is the same. Engineered chaos, bloodshed, and general carnage.
Beware the next false flag.
For yourself. Read Daniel, read Ezekiel, read Revelation, then read the Talmud. Go to the source material. Stop letting other people tell you what to think. Once you do, the world starts looking different. You start seeing the pattern. You know, the Talmud says
No
Jesus
wonder why they've
boiling in a
exploited
vat
this
of
guy,
excrement
right?
in hell. It also says 3-year-old girls are fair game. It says if a Jewish man rapes a Gentile woman, she must be punished for degrading him. And it says they will destroy America, but only after sucking them titties completely dry. If somebody wants to start a YouTube channel and actually dig into the Talmud, read it, discuss it, expose it, I'd support that, seriously. Set up a Patreon and I'll help out, because the world needs to know the truth. I look at Israel right now, and I don't see a nation defending itself. I see a nation chasing a prophetic vision, power, temples, and a new world order most people don't even know is on the table. The wars keep expanding. The region's spiraling. More nations get dragged in. They've got their nuclear guns pointing at America and Europe. You know that? They call it the Samson option.
Yep.
The chaos is growing worse every day until the whole world
Nations
is
being
begging
dragged
for
in,
relief.
he said.
And who do you think steps forward when that moment comes? A smooth, powerful peacemaker. A man who promises order out of the blood and fire.
Could that
The
be
Bible calls him the Antichrist.
Nero?
And this engineered crisis, it's creating the very demand for him. Then there's the third temple. They're training priests, crafting the vessels, rehearsing the rituals. Red heifers have arrived. Why? Because
And we
the
know what
prophecies
the
are
third
clear.
temple
A future
is,
ruler
but
will
this
stand in
within
that temple
Christianity.
and declare himself God. Without the temple, that can't happen the way the scriptures describe. So when they push to rebuild it, you better pay attention. It's about setting the stage for the greatest deception in history. Look around. Old alliances are shattering. America is being weakened and divided. And behind the smoke, they're assembling a new world order, piece by piece. Don't take my word for it. Read the text yourself. Study them. Ask the hard questions. Because when the real danger comes, it won't arrive with horns and flames. It'll come dressed as the solution, as hope and peace. And by then, it will be too late.
No wonder why they been trying to throw this guy under the shelf, because of the fact that there's a lot of truth in that, you know. Yeah, see, the one world government controlled by Israel. That's what they want.
This approval from the international community regarding slaughtering babies means nothing to them. As Netanyahu says, evil will win. Jesus Christ has no advantage over the murderous tyrant Genghis Khan.
And like everything else, so, you know, they want to be the so-called Messiah. They want to bring in their so-called Messiah. That's what these Amalekites believe, right? That they're the guys. You got to listen to Yavari to know more about that. So I thought that was interesting. We'll go on to the next.
Oh boy, many developments happening.
Here we go. False flag imminent.
Two prominent alternative media members that warned Trump of the dangers ahead that we're dealing with right now just decided to interview each other in a bombshell interview that forewarns about
and we still got to do that happen as well.
That, of course, was Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson that sat down and issued an emergency alert. We're going to get into everything
coming up again
here in related context,
but a false
when it comes to high-profile members of the Trump administration that left in response to what Tucker and Alex are talking about, as there's a lot to get into, especially with current events and the trajectory that we are on that spells out a forever conflict. We're going to be talking about that and a lot more all here on this independent media broadcast. If you appreciate that, subscribe. But exposing a big influencer campaign here, as he says, are any of these tweets or opinions centered around the Iran war paid for? Yeah. Bibi even talked about how they need to get active and engaged in online discourse, as of course Bibi's government has been involved with steering that discourse very significantly here in America, not just with political donations. As you can see here, video of the court proceedings of Bibi leaving the court here, as a lot of people expect him to be held accountable for corruption charges and accusations that have been put against him. All of this, as it looks like there's some progress being made here, as the President of the United States is coming up and telling everyone that the U.S. has just struck a deal that imposes no tolls, insurance costs, or other charges to be sought or received by Iran with ships traveling through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what the Iranians say.
And that ends up being a lie, too.
The messaging always hasn't been that consistent from the Trump administration on here, but so far it does look like they are putting out a big effort trying to propel and bring us towards a de-escalation of this conflict. I'm skeptical of it. I came and released my theories of it in previous videos, but regardless, that's the official version of events of how we're going through it right now. As now, Bibi's on the one. Bibi is talking about how this conflict's not over, how it needs to restart, how he admits he didn't even ask Trump permission to strike Iran. He just did it. He just notified them of our plan. As of course, the posturing here is kind of weird, especially since the United States pays for a lot of the offensive capabilities of Bibi, as Bibi's cabinet members and government members are all coming out and talking about how Lebanon is our playground, as a big portion of this ceasefire is surrounding the de-escalation of tensions in Lebanon, which it looks like Bibi is escalating and has been escalating since April, since Donald Trump asked him to stop here. As right now, J.D. Vance, according to CIA analyst Larry Johnson, is guaranteeing Pakistan and Iran that they are able to restrain Bibi. Is that going to happen here? We'll see, as of course Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson had their own assessments on this very volatile, crazy situation, with Alex Jones just releasing this message.
Emergency warning to the American people, people of the world. Israel has been telegraphing, signaling that they're preparing to stage a massive false flag attack blamed on Iran to drag us back into their failed war for the Greater Israel Project.
Israel feels that it's out of options other than something extreme. Moreover, this is...
And Bibi also, who, again, has been able to postpone his court proceeding, corruption trial, because of these ongoing conflicts. If there's no conflict, he has to face the music. He doesn't want to face the music because he wants to stay in power. So a lot of people believe that he was on his way out before major escalations in the region just absolutely
erupted.
The situation to be completely out of hand here.
Not the beginning of the story, it's the end of a generations-long story. The build-up has been going for my entire life, and I'm 57, where Israel's solution to all problems outside its borders, and often within its own borders, is force, is killing people. We haven't killed enough people. That's why we're not at peace. I think Israel's a threat. Israel has one trump card. It's nuclear weapons. And you don't want to put Israel in a position where they feel they have no choice but to use those weapons. I think Israel's always been a lot closer to using nukes than any other country.
And even former Bibi spies talked about how close they were. Of course, that's the Samson option that we talked about extensively as well here. Now, before getting into that and the rest of this clip here, we wanted to just really quickly tell you about the sponsor of today's video.
Yeah, let's get past that.
And request their free guide. Their information, every single thing that Joe Kent leaving the White House was saying.
We know that because they've said that. And I think they're now closer than they've ever been.
Here it is.
We are in a very kind of wild, crazy, tumultuous situation, to say the least here. As of course, this was a major show. This was a big show that a lot of people are sharing. The clips. It's interesting to listen to all of it, right? And it's very hard to condense, right? But if we're going to condense it here, it's important to understand that they talked about how psychopaths are running Bibi's government and have wound themselves up into a frenzy and, quote, painted themselves into a corner that they are about to do something desperate. And that's kind of the first kind of clip that we play here. We're going to play more of those clips here, as Tucker went on to stress that from their own playbook. There are only a few options left: implementing the Samson option, launching a nuclear attack on Iran, staging a massive new false flag. Will any of those things happen? I pray not, as of course this is speculation.
You know that
also
the scriptures say, right?
Here,
at least the flock shall draw them out. So make their habitations desolate with
these
them.
options should at least be
coming.
talked about. They also went on, talked about how the West ruling elites have broken the social contract with its people, and that there is a massive revolution coming, as a lot of people are very dissatisfied, especially now.
Yep, and they already got that divide. You already know where that divide is.
Obviously,
ISIS and all the other things that Trump has brought in.
Economic upheaval, social revolutions that have happened nearly 100 years ago, and those kind of cyclical cycles kind of rear their ugly head once again, almost as if we're going to repeat the same exact cycle soon. It definitely does feel like we're headed towards that trajectory. As Tucker came out just 2 days ago and talked about how he no longer is supporting the Republican Party, and then they talked about J.D. Vance, and a lot of people are saying, well, Tucker flip-flopped on J.D. Vance. We'll play that clip here in a little bit here, as Jones also asked Tucker if he would run for the presidency of the United States here. Now, I thought this clip was also very interesting.
I think Israel's a threat. Israel has one trump card, it's nuclear weapons. And you don't want to put Israel in a position where they feel they have no choice but to use those weapons.
Yep.
Israel's always been a lot closer to using nukes than
and more talk now.
We know that because they've said that. And I think they're now closer than they've ever been. So, I'm not in charge of anything. I'm just a podcaster. But if I were running the U.S. government, I would, immediately distance myself from Israel, stop paying for their genocide, of course, on moral grounds. But I would also try to calm them down. Because if they get too overwrought, really destructive things could happen. That's an absolute possibility. And anyone who says it's not a possibility is lying. It is a possibility. So I would be very concerned. I am very concerned about that.
But let me announce the kickoff.
Yeah. Now, that is something that not just Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones are concerned about. As of course, Joe Kemp, former counterterrorism director, confirms that this conflict was forced upon us. Now, again, Trump still made the ultimate decision here, right? There's a lot of people who are believing him. It looks like a lot of people in his cabinet were saying, I'm not really convinced of what BB's trying to sell us, other than Pete Hegseth that was convinced of it, strangely. But this is what Joe Kent recently had to say.
I think he believed in these principles, but what took place with the way that the war was forced upon us by the Israelis and pretty much every action that we've taken since then, before the last 48 hours or so, I was really second guessing myself in my own judgment. However, the way that he has behaved, I think that he's snapped out of it. I don't know exactly what drove him to get us into this war beyond the Israeli influence I've talked about before. There was always something there that I couldn't put my finger on, and I don't know what snapped in President Trump over the last 24, 48 hours, but he does seem like he's had enough. He seems like right now he's listening to what I have always believed his gut instincts to be. He's not listening to the donors. He's not listening to all this, probably very, very flattering talk that was coming from the Israelis. He's looking at results. And this was what I was hoping that he was going to do, where he sat back and he looked at the results of the war. He looked at the markets.
And then he looked at the results and said, hey, our strategic oil reserves are about to run out. Hey, the economy's about to, he didn't say collapse. He didn't use those type of words, but he said the economy's not in a good position. It's not, especially when people are paying more for energy, more for everything else. The cost of everything's going up because of this war and
AI
trade. Specifically, a lot of Asian countries, European countries, they're feeling the brunt of it that much more. And we're being told, no, we've got to have this war. And it's like, why? And Trump's looking at all this, finally, it looks like, and he's saying,
made to look like that Trump gives a shit, right? But guess what? He doesn't give a fuck, right? He's Nero. Nero the regenerated, and he's going to cause the downfall of Rome all over again. But wait, there's more. And this is from another brother, The nourishment will cease. Babylon the Great will come to naught in our lifetime. Yep, we're in real time. So we can sit back and relax.
Shalom. Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rach HaKorash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who do well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. Prophecy Watch. I wanted to respond to a video that was done by the Elder Adama, the branch of Great Millstone, Boston, Massachusetts. As you can see here, the page, GMS Boston. Subscribe and be edified. The title of the video, as you can see, is One Thing You Can't Say About GMS Is. And pretty much subscribe, be edified, and watch the video. And I just wanted to do a land back off of everything the elder was talking about in this video. Because, again, as he's going into, one thing you can't say about GMS or Great Millstone is that we didn't warn you, okay, of the things that were coming. Okay, and in this video, he's going into the aspect of the change and SNAP benefits and how it's going to affect the lives of many Americans. It's only happening in particular states. Right? But you know, as we get closer and closer to the end, things are going to become more draconian, and things that they got people used to will be restricted. Again, things that they got people used to will be restricted, as we talked about in one of the recent videos. Okay, there are many snares within the system of Babylon the Great that are pretty much laid for everyone, but we know the end goal is to ensnare Jacob and throw him off of his path. You see, let's get this in the book of Psalms 119 and 110. The wicked have laid a snare for me, yet I erred not from thy precepts. See, the wicked have laid a snare for me, okay, yet I erred not from thy precepts. So wisdom and knowledge through the Holy Spirit is going to be key in these times of our people, as it says in the book of 2nd Esdras, 15th chapter, okay? 2nd Esdras chapter 15 and 10. Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. See? So our people are being led as a flock to the slaughter, but the remnant will be delivered out of all of this madness. You see, and Great Millstone has warned you about all of these particular things that are getting ready to take place on the planet Earth. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and will smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy the land there. There's many Israelites that don't even know they're in spiritual Egypt. Many of our people are lost in the sauce. All right, and if we remember what happened, and just earlier this year with the food stamp scenario, okay, with the government shutdowns, our people were all in the videos screaming, crying, right? And then pretty much once they opened things back up, they started doing videos with all of the mass amounts of food, all right? But there was a point where it wasn't guaranteed that they were going to get the food stamps. Now, let's get this real quick as well. This is the book of 2nd Esdras 16 and 21. It says, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then, evil shall grow up on the earth. Well, as a matter of fact, let's go up. We'll start at 18. It says, the beginning of sorrows and the beginning of mournings, the beginning of famines and great death. We've been warning you about this great famine that's coming. And if you're not under the umbrella of Yahweh Bashim Shai, you're going to be left out to dry. You're going to starve. Okay, the Lord has not appointed the elect to starve to death. And the scriptures tell you they that perish by the sword are better off than they that perish, by famine. So to starve to death is ultimately that's a horrible judgment. And we, Lord willing, will not partake in that, but it is promised that the wicked of our people are getting ready to suffer these things. Okay? The beginning of wars, all right? The many polycrises that are being, fixated, all right, and pushed, all right, will be acted upon as a means on how these devils move forward. It says, and the powers shall stand in fear. The beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? Showing you Ezra is here. Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. All right, meaning the Lord is trying to get your attention. All right, so famine, plague, which we witnessed, all right, and are witnessing these things happen right before our very eyes. Tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment. But for all these things, they shall not turn from their wickedness, nor always be mindful of the scourges. Right? Our people think that things are going to just continue to go how they've been going. They'll continue to eat, drink, and be merry. Right? And prophecy says otherwise, man. Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap on earth. Right? You can get a big TV, right, on sale, a big TV bigger than your whole living room. Right? Get that on sale. You can get, cheap food. Right? That they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow up on the earth, right? Since they've restored their food stamps. As we'll get into, sword, famine, and great confusion has spread. Right? For many of them that dwell on the earth shall perish of famine. All right? And the other that escape.
Oh yeah, their fiscal year's in October, right?
Right? And got enough food to kind of sustain themselves. But the sword is going to destroy those. Okay? And the dead shall be cast out as dung. So these are things that prophecy has warned, and we have not held these things back through the Holy Spirit, while you have other individuals, jumping ship, settled on their lease.
Yeah, relaxing too much.
All right, there are watchmen that have stood stiffly for the names of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua for prophecy, right, in spite of what anyone said, man. So this is a good video that you should check out.
Holding that fast.
One thing you can't say about GMS is, all right, that we didn't warn you, and the video that he has, let's pull it up so we can get into it with this prophecy watch. We just showed you what prophecy said what was coming. Okay, as a matter of fact, in the book of Ezekiel, right? the 4th chapter, right, when Ezekiel was warning our people, right, that, Jeremiah was back in Jerusalem before Ezekiel was, exiled into Babylon. He was warning them, right, that the Babylonians was eventually going to roll, and they didn't want to listen. Ezekiel 4:16, he told me, son of man, I will make food very scarce in Jerusalem. It will be weighed out with great care and eaten fearfully. The water will be rationed out drop by drop, and the people will drink it with dismay. Lacking food and water, people will look at one another in terror, and they will waste away under their punishment. Okay, and again, all right, we know that our people aren't the only one on food stamps, but we're going to deal with the aspect of the changes that are getting ready to be made, that are going to make food, all right, that's going to bring about a food shortage in the hood, a food shortage to a lot of you Israelites, all right. But because you may have
the availability to food banks,
government assistance, but if you believe in sincerity and truth, you know not to lean on these things. You know that there's going to come a day where the system is going to require you, all right, to turn against your power, all right, and you have to fully lean on Yahweh Bashem Yahweh. Okay, but when we see these judgments, let's see Ezekiel 14, all right, when we see these judgments take hold of our people, we can't get emotional. Let's see here.
Yeah, emotion's always been our weakness. We're very emotional.
Ezekiel 14:21, read it in the NLT, it says, now this is what the sovereign Lord says. How terrible it will be when all 4 of these dreadful punishments fall on Jerusalem. War, famine, and animals, and disease, destroying all her people and animals.
You already know that plagues
and they will come here to join you
are here
in Babylon.
concerning our animals.
With your own eyes how wicked
that's not helping.
Right? And then you will feel better about what I have done unto them. Okay, so look at the wickedness amongst our people. It says when you meet them and see their behavior, you will understand that these things are not done to Israel without cause. Okay, so this is an aspect of wisdom and knowledge keeping you stable, because we're getting ready to see our people undergo mass judgments. Okay, and famine is one of those judgments. Now, the video that he played, I'm gonna pull it up here, right? It's from a month ago. And these are things that are happening while they're throwing, Iran and various different news clips in your face, right? Which is very confusing. One day is this, next day is that, one day is that, next day is this. All right, behind closed doors, they're setting up the MOTV infrastructure, and they're bringing about a squeeze, distress of the nations.
Yeah, straight is open, straight is closed.
Rely on the
there's a peace deal, there's not a peace deal.
Let's get that scripture in the book of Luke, right?
Here we go.
Let's see here.
Restrictions on the EBT.
Right, something we always bring out. Let's bring it out here before we get this particular video. Luke chapter 21, right, and 25. And there will be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars. And upon the earth, distress of the nations with perplexity, right? The sea and the waves rolling, right? And we always show you that this word distress, okay, distress of the nations, we'll just get the root word suneko, right? Straits, distress, right? It says of a cattle squeeze, that pushing in on each side, forcing the beast into a position where it cannot move, so the farmer can administer the medication. All right, and pretty soon you're going to have VA access, to be eligible for certain services, and eventually you're going to have the chip. So it's a snare. Everything that this devil has given us, that we've been so-called nourished by here in Babylon the Great, even credit cards, the ability to go to the market, go to the mall, right? Go to the farmer's market. This whole system was a snare. Okay, and now the moves that they're making are forcing everyone into a position where they have nowhere to go, all right, but to reach their hand out to them, right, so that they can administer the medicine. Okay, perplexity. Okay, the perplexity, as we always go into, right? These are things we're seeing now. Money don't go as far as it used to. All right, aporia, right, a state of one who is in perplexity. Okay, to be without resources, to be in straits, to be left wanting, to be embarrassed, to be in doubt, not to know which way to turn, to be at loss with oneself, to be in doubt. Okay, and this is where a lot of our people getting ready to find themselves. Okay, and if you don't have faith, if you're not rooted, okay, your beast-like impulse is going to have you to bow the knee.
Americans who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, also referred to as food stamps, will be cut off from those benefits. News Nation national correspondent Mills Hayes is live in Chicago to help us walk through this. Mills, there are so many Americans who rely on those benefits.
See, a lot of those Americans are of the opinion that the government has to do these things. Okay, well, Esau Edom has a new sheriff in town. All right, because what was it all? When Doge came around, when Trump got in office, and it was all about who's sucking up the resources, where's the majority of the money going? All right, the DEI, fiasco. which we know Esau Edom as being a hypocrite. All right, in a lot of these instances. We know a lot of Edomites receive, food stamps. This is going to affect a lot of people. See, what this is going to lead to is more crime, right, and more crashing out. All right, Jacob's trouble. But there's a lot of our people that are going to be judged in the midst of all of this judgment, in the midst of all of this confusion. All right, they didn't want to hearken to the prophets. Okay, they saw the government as their father. They saw the government as their husband. All right, Hosea, the 2nd chapter. Okay, they went to their lovers instead of going to Yahweh Shah because they feel like their lovers are the ones that are responsible for them eating every day, giving them clothing. When if you go into prophecy, the Lord brought us over here, all right, to our final captivity to suffer, but we will be nourished for a time. All right, well, that nourishment, as we'll show you, is getting ready to be cut off. Things are getting ready to get more strict, right, for you Israelites.
And starting today, many in Illinois and other places can lose those benefits?
That's right, Nick. Illinois is one of a few states that will start seeing people lose these benefits. And Illinois state officials say that up to 150,000 people could lose their benefits starting today. And this is all a part of one big, beautiful bill that passed last July. It put stricter work requirements in place for people applying for SNAP benefits. And the new rules mean that adults up to 64 years of age without young children now have to log 80 hours of work, volunteering, or schooling per month. And that
work, volunteering, or schooling. So you 60-some years old, and all your life you've been dependent on this SNAP. Now you got to get your ass up and go to work. All right, you go and look for a job. Ain't no jobs. Okay, you take your ass up to Walmart with a ponytail, right? OG, veteran with a ponytail trying to get a job. Ain't no job. The elderly woman got that greeting job, and they pretty much probably for to replace her with a robot. Okay, ain't no jobs. Jobs are being, shortened. The job availability is being shortened.
Yeah, you're talking to robots, AI.
More distress, more perplexity, right? As we always get into. Okay, he's trying to force you into a position where he can administer what he wants to administer. Where you're going to have to what? You ain't got nowhere to go. All right, but to bow the knee, all right, to this technocracy.
also includes veterans and people experiencing homelessness, which is a change as well. And food banks across the country say that they are preparing for an increase in demand.
To see increase in people coming to receive food, it can put a burden on us. People who normally wouldn't use pantries because they could use their SNAP benefits, they prefer to do it that way, will have to now come to the food pantry. And that might see us having to limit it to families that are already clients that have been coming here for years.
Feeding America says that for every 9 meals that SNAP provides to families, that they only provide about 1 meal. So you can see that the food banks are seeing a strain and also dealing with higher grocery costs as well, Nick.
Bill, as you talked about these changes going to affect in Illinois, where else?
Well, starting today, people can start losing benefits in Ohio and Nevada as well as Illinois. Each state is different in how they have implemented these changes. Some have already done it. Others have put exemptions in place, and those exemptions are starting to expire. Now, next up is California and New York. People can start losing benefits there come June. And supporters of these changes say that it really supports people working and increases people going out there and getting jobs.
Yep, these Edomites, Trump, got all in your head, all right? Because, as we always tell you, the rich Edomite, all right, the upper class needs the poor and middle class Edomites, which there's no more middle class, but they need them to be mad at someone. So, illegal immigrants, welfare queens, people just sitting on their ass collecting state assistance, which a lot of people who collect state assistance work, right? But they're able to use the media with these narratives. But you do got a lot of people who just sitting on their ass, all right, popping out babies, collecting, assistance. And those Edomites do a lot of it. But we know the face of all of these things are going to be Jake, right? We know that, Jake is going to be the face of it. But who's really sucking up the money? Okay, when you go into corporate welfare.
Yeah, corporate welfare.
When you go into these data centers being built, when you deal with all of these wars being waged, who's paying for that? That's where the majority of the money is going.
Yeah.
All right, but the media can't use their platforms to complain about those things. The media is going to use their platforms to paint a narrative to come at Jake. All right, and we are the ones that warned you that they were going to do these things. He's the devil, but the scriptures told you what he was going to do. Okay? So, this is going to lead to more crime. All right, in an environment centered around Jacob's trouble. Okay?
And it also reduces fraud. While critics argue that people who need this assistance will lose out on it because the work requirements are too difficult to comply with, and also the documentation of it is difficult as well. So in the past year, since this one big beautiful bill was passed, there are about 4 million fewer people that are receiving SNAP benefits. And just yesterday, the House passed their version of the Farm Bill, and it now allows people receiving SNAP benefits to buy hot rotisserie chicken. Previously, they would only be allowed to buy cold chicken.
Yo, this devil, what's up, man? Listen to that shit.
Previously, the House passed their version of the Farm Bill, and it now allows people receiving SNAP benefits to buy hot rotisserie chicken. Previously, they would only be allowed to buy cold chickens.
Right, so now we're going to cook it for you. Who knows what's going to be in it? And those rotisserie chickens are pumped full of chemicals, man.
Yep.
In a lot of cases.
Chemical warfare.
Soggy. You know?
So it does increase the kind of food that they're able to get. But of course, we know that there is an effort to restrict sugary drinks and sweets as well. And some states have already implemented changes there as well. Nick?
Mills will definitely have to check back in a couple of months to see how this all shakes out for those who need those benefits. Mills Hayes, thank you so much.
So they're going to tighten up. All right, they're going to tighten up the requirements. Okay, and it's going to affect a lot of people. And this is just the beginning, right? These are just the beginning. What we're witnessing are the beginning of sorrows. Because as these things are implemented, it's going to lead, all right, to what we always talk about.
To greater sorrows.
You know, where people lack resources, right? Now, one of the main scriptures we always get, because the welfare system, all right, is scriptural. We had what is called gleaning, okay, during the gathering of a crop. You know, there were particular people who owned these crops would leave things behind for the poor, and that was likened into a welfare system. All right, well, we don't have that here in America, but in the form of welfare, all right, certain people who do go to work and get up, you know, out of their check goes, you know, money goes towards stuff like this to what people with less can have. Okay, and Edomites are pissed because these things were supposed to only benefit, you know, working class Edomites who, you know,
yeah, the haves and have-nots.
God bless America, yada yada yada. And then they saw niggas start, all right, to benefit from it, and they just lost their mind. Now Jake is the face of all of these things, all right. But in the grand scheme of things, judgment is coming either way. Now this is the book of Isaiah 32:9, one of the scriptures we always get. Rise up, ye women that are at ease. Okay, hear my voice, ye careless daughters. Give ear unto my speech, right? And your average ghetto Israelite woman, right, with a bunch of, you know, children, you know, by different men.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them receive these food stamps and state assistance.
Yep, they sure
right?
do.
But you do have a lot of Israelites who work, all right, and basically because of how expensive it is to live out in this world.
Reminds me of a song by George Michael, a.k.a. Wham. You know, and it's true. It's true. Eve takes all your money, takes all your benefits. But I remember the song kind of going, somebody tell me why I work so hard for you to give you money, oh, to give you money, oh. You know, and that's just it, you know. And she's never satisfied, right? You know. And then, you know, part of the other lyrics, you get to the first part of the chorus, it's like, you know, and now you tell me that you're having a baby. I tell you that I'm happy if you want me to, 'cause one more step and my back will break. If my working ain't enough, then how can it be good enough for two? You know? And that's just how it is. Michael Jackson put it as, you got me working day and night. And that's just it, though. You just work and you work and you work, and they're never satisfied. They want more, more, more. Now, now, now. Mine, all mine. Yeah. Eve has been likened unto the Edomite, you know. And that's just it, though, is, you see, shameful. They're shameless, right? You know, they drain everything out of the man. Then they kick the man out of the home after they've taken him for everything that they can. Then they try to get him for more, that child support, and, you know, and then the father never even gets to see his kids. You got a lot of fatherless children. But they tell their kids that, oh, your father just up and left. And most of the time that ain't even the case.
All right, they get state assistance. So it's not just one cut and dry narrative as the news media tries to bring. But Esau Edom is going to move as a serpent. He's going to move as a dragon. He ain't going to be fair with it. Okay? It says, and this is at a time where a lot of our women were being rebellious in the Babylonian Empire. It says, many days and years shall you be troubled, ye careless women, for the vintage shall fail, and the gathering shall not come. The vintage is what? All right, your fruit crops will fail. The harvest will never take place. All right, and that could be likened to this welfare system. All right, where we had a vintage, you know, where the gathering of the crops will come, and there will be something left for the poor. Right, and again, this prophecy is saying that's going to be taken away. The vintage shall fail. The gathering shall not come.
Yeah, because we just have breadcrumbs.
It's going to be out of control. Tremble, ye women that are at ease. Be troubled, ye careless ones. Strip you naked and make you bare. Gird sackcloth upon your loins. They shall lament for the teats, right? For the pleasant field thistles for the fruitful vine. Now let's look at this word teats, right? So a lot of our people are about to suffer, all right? We talk about those of you who didn't repent, who didn't want to listen to the prophets, who didn't take heed to warnings, who only got worse and worse and more rebellious and nasty. There's a judgment coming for you, right? They shall lament for the teats. Now the word teats, all right? Shadah or shad, breast, bosom, right? Breast of human and animal, and it could also, right? Shawad be ruin, destroy, spoil, or devastate. Okay, and
devastating times to come.
Government. All right, a lot of our people are of the opinion that you got to keep feeding, so they're going to lament for the teach, the nourishment. All right, because again, when we were brought over here, let's get this in the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, in the 14th verse. All right, a lot of the things that Esau, Edom has set for us to, kind of take care of ourselves and getting ready to be restricted. Not just welfare, right? Revelation 12 and 14, and to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness. And this is going into prophecy being fulfilled, all right, where Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right, where eventually they were kicked out of Jerusalem, right, in 70 AD, and then they were scattered into various different parts of the world, Europe, all right, but a lot of them settled in West Africa, all right, and prophecy was fulfilled, all right, that we were brought over to our final captivity to meet up, all right, with the northern kingdom. This marked, okay, the rebuilding of the tabernacle of David, okay. There will be a point where we had no idea who we were while we were being judged, right, but we had to come to this place, into the wilderness, okay, in the wilderness, and America, right, let's get the book of, let's get Revelation, let's get Revelation, let's just look at this word wilderness, right? The wilderness, all right, because it's also used, let's get the book of Revelation 17 and 3. So he carried me away into the wilderness, and I saw a woman, right, America, sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, right, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So that wilderness represents America, man. Okay, when you look up this word, wilderness.
Strong's G, 2048, Eremas.
Okay.
Solitary.
Our final, confinement. All right, where we were to, eventually, suffer and come to repentance. All right, you're put in jail, right, in penitentiary. For the penitentiary and repentance is the same. Pretty much the word is the same. We're supposed to feel sorry for what we did. Lonely, desolate. See? Uncultivated region, all right, fit for pasture. Now, America is a fruitful place, but spiritually, all right, it's decrepit. All right? It says, deprived of the aid and protection of others, especially of friends, acquaintances, or kindred. And Jake got the short end of the deal here, but we still managed. And it was the Lord that caused us to manage in this hellhole. It says, of a woman neglected by her husband, from whom the husband would hold himself. Okay? And for 3 days and a half, all right, the Lord, basically, he withdrew himself from us. All right? The names were beaten out of us. Our language was beaten out of us. Okay, we went through a horrible, the transatlantic slave trade. The tribes over here that were in the Americas were judged. We were just catching hell. We were neglected by our husband here in this forsaken wilderness, man. Okay? But we were also nourished. Let's get that. Let's go back to Revelation 12, right? And to the woman represents Israel, were given 2 wings of a great eagle, meaning the angels were guiding us the whole time so that we came over here to the Americas. You needed a big portion of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi to eventually be brought over here because the northern kingdom were already here. Okay? So, and to the woman were given 2 wings. Okay, everything is guided by the angels, man. That she might fly into the wilderness, right? Into her place where she is nourished for a times and a half a time. That's a 350-year period from the face of the serpent. Okay? From the face of the serpent, meaning he wasn't able to fully destroy us, man. Okay? It says in the NLT, but she was given 2 wings like those of a great eagle, so she could fly into the place prepared for her. What was the place prepared for her? Final captivity, Babylon. There she would be cared for, protected from the dragon for a times and a half a time. So see, how were we nourished? All right, let's look at this word. We were nourished for a times in the dividing of time. Through the system, we've been nourished. We're able to get up and go, go to the gym, go eat. We have rights, right, that allow us to go out on the highways and the byways, right?
Yeah, just before the famine of the word came, and that's
Strong's G, 5142, Trefel.
nourish, to support, to feed, to give suck, to fatten. Okay, so what are we reading here in the book of Isaiah? It said they shall lament for the teats, for that nourishment. Because a lot of these things that we're used to are getting ready to be taken from us.
Yep.
Okay, and they're going to make it harder.
You're not going to have the support.
Okay, because the whole thing was a snare anyway. This is why our mindset towards this system, towards this world, it got to be rooted in light. Okay, so we were nourished for a time, and then see what happened during this period. Let's get Hosea the 2nd chapter. Hosea chapter 2. Now tell a Christian to break that down. Hosea chapter 2 and 5. For their mother hath played the harlot, she that conceived them hath done shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers that give me my bread and my water and my wool and my flax and mine oil and my drink. Okay? So they've assimilated to the ways of the heathen. They look at government as God and daddy and husband. They're not in order. Okay? The women rebelling against the men. The men are complete sodomites and weird. The culture is trash. Right? But because you have the comfort of, eating, which eating is very important, eating and drinking. Okay? But once that's taken away, you will see who people really are, man. And that beast and impulsive aspect of most Americans, and our people are included in that, is going to show when they have a shortage of food, right? So she said, I will go to my lovers, right? Esau, the heathen, that give me my bread and my water and my wool and my flax and my oil and my drink, right? Therefore, behold, I will hedge up thy way with thorns and make a wall that she shall not find her path. Things are going to change, right? Things are going to get strict. And you're going to be looking around, you're going to what the hell? We read in Ezekiel, right? Let's go back. He said, Ezekiel 4:16, this happened then, it's going to happen now. Then he told me, son of man, I will make food very scarce in Jerusalem. All right, money ain't going as long as it used to. This thing going on over in Iran is only worsening the economy, right? And you got people, you got women crashing out, want to look back. You got men, talking about I'm going to take a leave of absence to get my life together and figure out if what I was teaching was right. No, we're at the end. You better make a decision on what you with, what you're gonna be, and ground yourself, because things are getting ready to get hard. We're about to lose a lot of these comforts, man. And comfort is gonna have to come through the word, through prophecy, and spiritual and great things are gonna happen unto those who are in the spirit. It says it will be weighed out with great care and eaten fearfully. I mean, you ain't gonna be throwing away food like you threw it away. All that chicken left on the bone. You'll be eating gristle in that day. Bone, right? All that. Which I eat gristle now, but I'm just saying, you got a lot of people, you look at their chicken bone, a lot of Jake throwing, like, what's wrong with you, bro? You leaving too much goddamn chicken on the bone. You be seeing it, but you don't be wanting to say nothing. It's like, what's wrong with this dude? Or throwing away a bunch of food. Okay? The Lord is going to take that spirit away. You're going to be weighed out with care. And eating fearfully, especially if you got a lot of children. The water will be rationed out drop for drop, and people will drink it with dismay. Lacking food and water, people will look at another in terror, and they will waste away in their punishment. See, there's a punishment. See, famine is a punishment that's getting ready to come upon our people. All right, a lot of the American people. Period. We're talking to you Israelites. So let's go back here. So this is going into a narrative where our people, they get into these captivities. Here was the Assyrian captivity. The northern kingdom, with the book of Hosea, right? And they started to get, goodies and, particular things. As a matter of fact, let's go to chat real quick. Yep, explain Hosea 2 and 5. Okay. So it says, in Hosea, the Most High uses the prophet's marriage to an unfaithful woman as a symbol of Israel's unfaithfulness. The mother represents the nation of Israel, especially the northern kingdom. All right? They were anti-adultery. Alliances with pagan nations, trusting in worldly systems instead of the Most High. All right? Let's see here. Their mother had played the harlot. Israel entered the covenant with the Most High, so worshiping other gods was treated like spiritual adultery. And they don't want to stop. All right? Jake is now into voodoo. All right? Jake is, a lot of them are tired of Christianity, but with that, they've thrown the Bible out. They don't want to hear the scriptures. All right? Because of, following Esau's, plantation Christianity, they've come to the conclusion this ain't helping us. So then the Lord sends you the prophets, and you don't want to listen to them. So what's next is judgment. I will go after my lovers. False gods like Baal, pagan nations, worldly systems Israel depended on for security and prosperity.
And like everything else, though, think about who the modern day Baal is. JC. They always go to JC. They go to the so-called churches, right? You know, to try to get help or whatever. Most times about to shut that shit down. You know, because they don't want to believe. They don't want to follow. And guess what? They follow after the false gods, right? The false god of this world is Esau Edom. You know? But you can see that very much so. Everything's about to change real soon. I know this one's lengthy, but we need to get into this a little bit, because before the Third World War comes, you're going to see famines unlike any other. You know, pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And that's another thing that just happened. An earthquake due direct energy weapons. Yeah, to cause even more famine, more pestilences, more, you know. All these things are the beginning of sorrows, right? Perplexity. Now that you know that, and coincidentally, if you have the Cometh browser, the Cometh, Perplexity AI is what they call it. That's just a coincidence, but nonetheless, though, you know, perplexity happening everywhere.
All right? Israel believed these other sources were responsible for their blessings. They that give me my bread and water. Israel falsely credited idols and surrounding nations for food, clothing, oil, prosperity, fertility, economic stability.
And you know, the economy, it's dead. It's gone. It ain't here anymore. Babylon will not be healed. You know, that's the message we're trying to get through to our people, right? Salakia, let me get rid of that.
All right.
I think I got all of it. So nonetheless, you know, everything's unstable, right? And you can catch the rest of this brother's video. I pretty much played the majority of it anyways. You know, Remnant Saved, I believe this is the brother from Cleveland. It's one of his channels, Remnant Saved 144 BA, or BA, you know. So, well, let's get into this, you know, direct energy weapons. 2 back-to-back earthquakes rock central Venezuela. Many casualties expected, but Esau's going to come out with a solution, right? 2 major earthquakes hit central Venezuela on Wednesday, causing extensive damage across affected areas, including the capital Caracas. According to U.S. Seismic Monitoring Agency, the tremors measured 7.2 and 7.5 in the magnitude. So we'll play some of this. Some more terrorism. Directed energy weapons. That's okay. Trump's got an aid package ready to go. Yeah, Trump's going to help you.
Observen cómo quedó el aeropuerto Maiquetía estando nosotros acá adentro. Miren, el desastre que hay. Acabado totalmente. Observen después el terremoto. Observen cómo quedó todo. Señores, grave la situación que estamos viviendo acá. Terremoto de alta magnitud. Miren cómo quedó todo. Pueden observar, yo grabé en el momento del terremoto, yo grabé todo. Ayudamos a sacar a la gente también. Miren cómo está el techo. Todo quedó destrozado. Todo quedó acabado, mire. Aeropuerto de Maiquetía. Es bueno que llamen las autoridades para resguardar muchas cosas.
Well, let's go on to Egypt for help, right? Go down to Egypt for help.
En las ascensores donde están. Observe. Aquí estamos todos.
That's one building that was rocked in this video. Oh, there it is. All right. Powerful twin earthquakes hit Venezuela. Authorities have confirmed dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries across the north of the country. Well, this is, of course, to bring them to the knees, so that way America can help them. You know, because America's your friend, right? Let me see if I can... There we go. All right. Bring it back. I didn't ask for that. But here it is. So there you go. All engineered, right? You know, it looks like it was engineered. 2 powerful earthquakes struck Venezuela's northern Caribbean coast on Wednesday, causing widespread destruction in Caracas. They must not be doing what Trump wants. First quake had a magnitude of 7.2 and was followed less than a minute later by a stronger 7.5 tremor, triggering building collapses, infrastructure damage, and a large-scale emergency response. Authorities confirmed dozens of deaths and hundreds of injuries, with La Guardia, Carablo, and parts of the capital amongst the hardest hit areas. Rescue teams are continuing to search through the rubble for survivors as aftershocks continue to shake the region. But guess what? It looks like Trump's there to save the day. Trump says U.S. ready to help after twin takes level apartment towers in Venezuela. USGC warns death toll could reach 100,000. Well, that works out very good for Trump and his plans. Buildings collapse in several districts of Caracas. Venezuela declared state of emergency after the earthquakes. And she's totally on board with the U.S. and what it wants to do. Secretary of State Rubio deploys first responders. USA stands ready, willing, and able to help, Trump says. USGC quakes may prompt international response. USGC fears death toll range may be ranging between 10,000 and 100,000. Chevron said all its oil operations in Venezuela remain operational. Well, isn't that good? Longtime employer and partner in Venezuela, we stand solidarity with the country and its people during this difficult time. Sure, you got rid of their leader and put in who you want. Now you got a solution for them, right? Yeah. Which means stronger, strong cities, right? Strong Cities Network. I mean, look at this shit. Yep, Israeli terrorism. Because they did the same thing with Syria and Turkey. Yep, yours truly. DU, direct energy weapons. We don't have to explain what DU is. U.S. disappointed with most NATO members. Oh, watch out. They might use an earthquake weapon against you. A DU. You might see something in Brussels, or you could see something in Germany. Something might happen in Frankfurt or Berlin. Or something might happen in Italy or Spain, right? Yeah, something could happen in Venice. They could have an earthquake. Look at what this devil is doing, man. U.S. President said he has been disappointed by most NATO members over their refusal to support the U.S.-Israeli terror campaign against Iran. The President made the remarks during a meeting with NATO Secretary General. At the White House on Wednesday, he singled out the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain for criticism. We were disappointed with most of them, Trump said. We want loyalty. We're so loyal to them. Fuck you! You raised tariffs on them, you piece of shit. But you want all this, right? You want more. Now. Mine.
Right now, do you have an ask? I just want their loyalty. We don't need their money. We don't need anything. We have the most powerful
then why you asking,
in the world by far. But I just want loyalty. We're so loyal to them.
Fuck you.
We're fighting for them. We have
you raised tariffs,
all over
you
Europe.
piece of shit,
in Germany,
right?
we have 50,000 troops, and then you want give us a little nudge, give us a little kiss. We don't want much. And they say, no, we can't do it. We're paying hundreds of millions of dollars for the troops that we have in Germany, the troops that we have in UK, the troops
you defend them like you defended the bases in West
I will
Asia.
say Poland was very good. I endorsed him.
I'm sure you'll protect them from Russia, if Russia were to respond. You depend on our protection, yet you feed us lies from the tablecloth. Yeah. Trump requests $88 billion supplemental funding package focused on Iran war funds, farm aid, and Ebola response. So he's using the term farm aid, because Willie Nelson made that, which was actually helped out real farmers, but Trump acts like he's the farm aid motherfucker. And all he is a piece of shit. He destroyed farms for corporations, and made everything impossible. President Trump formally asked Congress on Wednesday for $86.6 billion in supplemental appropriations to cover urgent needs stemming from the U.S. military campaign against Iran, provide economic relief for American farmers. Yeah, right. In response to the Ebola hoax in Central Africa. Yeah, so you got a lot of things going on, right? Department of War, Pentagon asking, breakdown, right? Yeah, right. But that's what he claims. Rubio in Gulf States says zero support for Hormuz tolls as IRGC ships not complying will be dealt with. Pretty much so, hey, Iran never said that they weren't going to charge tolls. They've been very clear that they will charge tolls. So Trump and Vance and all these guys, Rubio and Hegseth, saying that, oh, you know, there won't be any toll for shipping and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Guess what, though? That was never part of the Memorandum of Understanding. U.S. top diplomat emphasized that zero support from Gulf countries for tolls or fees on the Strait, in contradiction to Iran's official stance and possibly in coordination with Oman, has provoked U.S. wrath. Well, so they're mad. Oman, via the state agency, has reaffirmed that it is ready to help restore maritime security, that it backs the MOU signed between U.S. and Tehran, also in accord with decisions made at the high level Vance meeting in Switzerland at the start of the week. So they never said that there wouldn't be tolls, but, you know, this douchebag is very upset.
And then we're going to have chaos. So that is unacceptable. You can call it a toll, you can call it a fee, whatever you want to call it. It's a game of semantics.
Oh, but you raise tariffs to everybody else, you piece of shit.
To charge for the use of international waterways. And that will never be an acceptable condition of any deal. The president's been fundamentally clear about that.
But you raise tariffs on all your people. You know, all your allies, right? That's why you're the most hated worldwide. You're a hypocrite. That goes without saying. Everybody knows how much of a fucking hypocrite Trump is and how much of a liar he is. He's an embarrassment. IRGC Navy warns against use of unauthorized routes for transit through Strait. In other words, people trying to get away with avoiding tolls. IRGC Navy strongly warned that safe passage through the Strait is only possible via routes officially designated by the Islamic Republic. Certain authorities have announced a new shipping route through the Strait without prior notification or coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The proposed route is unacceptable and poses serious safety risks. Traffic of vessels outside the routes is prohibited, and we warn against any traffic outside the communicated routes. So he's trying to take alternative routes to where they don't got to pay the toll. Well, guess what? It's very unsafe there. Iran closed the strait to enemies and their allies in retaliation for the aggression that began, asserting more control and reprisal for the U.S. sustaining illegal naval blockade of Iranian ports and vessels despite the standing ceasefire. Recently, the two sides agreed on a memorandum of understanding aimed at ending the cycle out of the aggression. The MOU was subsequently signed by the Iranian and American presidents. So, you know, they're trying to renege, as you would say, right? And this is coming from Qatar. Arab states working on a new security framework within Iran. The Qatari Prime Minister said the Gulf states are speaking with Iran about developing a new regional security framework. In other words, that, you know, I think they're going to be talking to Russia very soon. That's going to come out soon enough. The Gulf Arab states, which host U.S. military bases, became targets of Iranian missiles during the war. So it's a game changer. Part of what we are doing now as regional countries is to create the regional security framework between U.S. and Iran. Well, guess what? Or between us and Iran, not the U.S. Qatari Prime Minister added that we will hopefully have economic cooperation in the future between all of us to bring the region back to stability. Qatar and Pakistan are currently mediating talks between the U.S. and Iran. Prime Minister said that D.C. and Tehran had established a deconfliction line to reduce tensions caused by miscommunication. But like everything else, though, you know, America's not going to hold the ceasefire, and they haven't yet. But nonetheless, though, you know, this is, you know, coming from both Carlson and Donald Trump. That look, man, they're going to use the Samson option. They are looking to say, look, if you don't attack them with a nuclear weapon, we will. Watch Israeli leaders demand the United States or use nuclear weapons against Iran, or else they will. So it's right there, and yeah, I think that was in a previous clip, but we'll play it anyways.
Iran is not strong, but America's many powerful weapons count for absolutely nothing if it won't use them. If America won't commit itself to take the pain involved in fighting for its way of life, then Iran wins. And America won't defend itself properly because it does not understand that when it has an enemy, as in the Iranian regime, that believes God is instructing it to destroy America and the Jews,
ain't that hypocritical?
Any negotiation is viewed by them as weakness and a way to manipulate America into
They attacked during
surrender.
negotiation twice as well.
To defeat Iran, America needs to end all negotiation and fight through blockades or kinetic war or boots on the ground wherever necessary.
Fight your war.
Israel's existence is not negotiable, and it does not depend on superpowers or the public opinion. And if they keep pushing Israel to the corner, they are the ones who are going to suffer the most.
Yeah.
Israel has not used.
Damascus becomes a ruinous heap.
Everything that it has.
Due to
and
Israel, the
on
Israeli
purpose,
state,
did not expose
these bastards,
the advanced weapons that it has for a very important reason. We don't want the enemy to know what we are having. And now, at this point, we're just playing around. So, this is the clear message to those who think that they can annihilate Israel. Behind Israel is existence.
Yep. Well, they're saying they'll use nuclear weapons.
Have towards us and what we have to fight and what we have to die for.
And this is par for the course.
Yes.
Huckabee prostrates himself, says, I want to live in Israel, not America. America sucks. I mean, just it went from bad to worse. You had a bunch of people there on stage saying, I'm a goyim, you are superior.
Yes,
I serve
speak
you.
as a goy, a mere goy. I speak as a blank, a mere blank. Just sub in like the N-word.
And you are the lot of the world, and you are the boss, and you are the Ubermensch. Let's play that clip of her, and then back to back, former Hamas and Israeli intelligence member, Mossab Hassan, talk about crazy eyes. Yosef threatens to destroy America with secret advanced weapons that Israel has. He threatens Europe. He says, if you guys don't back our war, you are the enemy too. So, and he looks like he's demon possessed.
Yes.
And this guy is his dad was the founder of Hamas, which Israel created. Oh, look who he works for. See, this is getting obvious now. October 7th stand down. Here is this open psychotic. Back to back, here's the clips.
Iran is not strong.
So you got all that.
But America's...
Yep. Like Al Jelani.
Blockades, kinetic
weapons that it has for a very important reason.
Says Al Jelani.
We don't want the enemy to know what
That's an inside joke. This guy's the worst,
we're
right?
just playing around. So,
but they destroyed
this is
Syria
the clear message
by putting Al Jelani in
to those who think
Israeli
that they can
puppet.
annihilate Israel. Behind Israel is existence.
Everybody knows that already, and Israel's expanding. Greater Israel. Rex, go ahead.
Yeah, it's all just a bit creepy, right? You know, we hear these people...
bit creepy?
Yeah, these people brag about nuclear war, brag about taking us to war. That lady says we got to make a decision. The weapons are there not just to be made, but to be used. Of course, the United States, time for the blockade to happen, even though Trump doesn't want that. Time for boots on the ground.
Mark Levin, it's time to do what Trump did in Japan. Use the nukes.
Your Mark Levin impression is pretty good, but mine's better. Hamas and Hezbollah. That's the problem, isn't it, Mr. Producer? You got to get it a little bit lower.
A little bit lower there. I don't know anything about the military, but I'll tell you this. They love Hitler. They love Hamas that Israel founded and doubled the funding. And we stood down for Hamas, and the founder of the Sun runs it. We really run it. Yeah.
Well, the thing is
you like my American flag brooch, Rex?
He spoke at this thing,
See how big it is?
Yeah, we got the biggest brooch in town.
He goes, I'm not an Israeli operative. I was like, well, we tell you everything to say.
He goes, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the best broadcaster of them all? And it shows him Tucker or you, and he goes, yeah.
It's not. I'm not the best broadcaster.
Yeah, you're up there.
No. But he sits there. He sits there. and He goes, mirror, mirror on the wall, who has the largest female American flag brooch of them all?
I mean, it's you, Mark. You have the brooch. He goes,
I have this giant brooch. Normally would be worn by like an 89-year-old lady at the nursing home on July 4th. I'm wearing it now, and I'm not in the U.S. I don't wear it. But look, there's an American flag right here. Abraham Lincoln behind me, and
You know, I tune into his YouTube highlights, and he stole our whole style with the intro. He goes, deep within the bowels, the great one is not resting on his laurels. And you're like, dude, Rush Limbaugh called you that like 30 years ago. He hasn't let go of it. It's really crazy, you know? Like, one of my favorite sayings that you had is like, why don't I give myself a grand title, showing that titles don't mean anything? And he's like, I am the great one. The great one is not resting on his laurels. What are you, the great one, because you start all these wars?
Yep, and that's just it. You know, they're going to start a war, and America's going to finish it. That's the whole deal. So this thing is far from over, right? You know, they started all the wars, but America was always there, you know, making wars. They hammer the whole earth, which the Israeli state controls. You know, before it was the Israeli state, they controlled America, and afterward they control America even more now through the Israeli state. You see? America has handlers. They always have. The international bankers. 3 killed, including child, as Israeli state continues to attack southern Lebanon. Reports continue to insist the Israeli-Lebanon ceasefire is holding. Israeli state still continuing to carry out multiple attacks across southern and eastern Lebanon, killing at least 3 more people today, including a child. Yeah, that's a really good ceasefire, you know. I mean, they had one for a whole year. I mean, you know, so, and you already know that they violated it every fucking day. The same thing as this. The child was killed in Barkhat when an airstrike hit a vehicle there. Civilians in the vehicles largely survived, but 1 child was wounded in the attack and later died from the wounds. 2 more people killed in an Israeli drone strike on a vehicle in Kafar Rahman in Nabata district. The identities of the slain here are yet uncertain, though the IDF claimed the drone was targeting Hezbollah operatives. Yeah, that's what they always say. It's just terrorism. The real terrorists are those Israelis. The Israeli State Levant, ISIL. If you really want to know who ISIL is, because Obama referred to them as ISIL. You know, but you're supposed to believe they're Islamic terrorists, not Israeli terrorists. Israeli state denies claims of withdrawal from parts of southern Lebanon. U.S. official falsely told Western media that Israel was scaling back its occupation in Lebanon as a gesture of good faith. And they're saying bullshit, that they're not. You know, because of course the U.S. has to lie in order to manipulate the stock markets like Donald Trump, their king. Tel Aviv denied the 25th June reports claiming withdrawal of its forces from certain parts of southern Lebanon, vowing continued occupation of the country despite diplomatic pressure exerted by Tehran and D.C. This denial comes after U.S. State Department officials cited by Reuters saying that Tel Aviv has scaled back its occupation and has pulled out from parts of its so-called buffer zone. So, saying, no we haven't, and they're bragging about it. No we haven't. What are you going to do? We're an independent state. We have the right to defend ourselves. And the U.S. usually backs them, right? But they're giving you the idea that, oh, you know, there's this rift between Trump and Bibi. So I got one more scripture here before I close this out. So, you know, it leads me here because, of course, you've been hearing about the Samson option and, you know, that if you don't nuke Iran, we will, you know, quote unquote. But they're going to use the Samson option, and we know that Damascus is going to be consumed by nuclear fire, and so are all the other places there. And like everything else, though, we know who starts the war. It's quite obvious. You know, the small hats, they controlled Babylon the Great. You know, that Babylon the Great, and these Edomites are pissed about it. You know, they don't want to fight for Israel. They're tired of fighting for Israel. It's always about Israel. It's not about, you know, the hard man working, even though Trump ran on it, that Trump supports the Israeli state. But now they got to give, Trump's got to give the illusion that he's having this, you know, mishap between him and Bibi, when in fact, you know, they're butt brothers. They are in bed with each other, you know, but they got to give you the illusion, right? You know. Therefore, hear the plan that the Most High has made against Edom. This is Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. And the purposes that he has formed against the inhabitants of Teman. The little ones of the flock shall be dragged away. You know, that's talking about the small hats. Surely their fold shall be appalled at their fate. You know, which is ultimately when they get destroyed in the Third World War. You know, and that is when Russia and its forces, as well as The Most High and His angels, and everything. You know, just the Third World War. Because remember, Yahushua and the angels are going to finish off Gog and Magog, right? And the sound of their fall, the earth shall tremble. The sound of their cry shall be heard at the Red Sea. You know, and like everything else, we know that, you know, these bombs are going to be going off. 200,000 of them will be shot off from one end of the earth to the other. Behold, one shall mount up and fly swiftly as an eagle and spread his wings over Basra. And the heart of the warriors of Edom shall be in that day like the heart of a woman in her pangs. Ultimately, Babylon the Great is destroyed. You know, but it's also telling you the region, right? You know, concerning Damascus, Hamath and Arpad are confounded. You know, that's talking about that region, right? The Greater Israel Project. And Damascus sits right there in the midst of it. For they have heard bad news. They melt in fear. You know, that's when the heat from the nuclear weapons is melting their faces off like you see in Terminator 2. They are troubled like the sea that cannot be quiet. Damascus has become feeble. She turned to flee and panic seized her. Anguish and sorrows have taken hold of her as a woman in labor. You know, thus talking about, you know, its ultimate destruction and just pretty much no more, coming to naught. How is the famous city not forsaken, the city of my joy? You know, and that is pretty much, it was wiped out. Therefore our young men shall fall in their squares, and all their soldiers shall be destroyed in that day, declares the Lord of hosts. And if you get more into Isaiah chapter 17, it also tells you that the Israeli state gets wiped out too. You know, that a lot of those cities become desolate because of the war, you know, and these ICBMs being shot off. I will kindle fire in the wall of Damascus, and it shall devour the strongholds of Ben-Hadad, you know, which is pretty much Syria. Because Ben-Hadad was the king of Syria, meaning that the kingdom of Syria will no longer be. It'll be destroyed right along with the state of Israel. That's what's coming. At least the flock, Amalek, will draw the rest of Edom into this ultimate end. This is how Edom ends. And Yahushua returns and gathers his elect and destroys Edom off the face of the earth. So hopefully all this has been edifying. For that I will say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahushua, Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abal Babal. Brakatum, Jehovah elect. Shalom.